welcome to Pulse by AlphaWire, the podcast where science and education meet cutting-edge technology and artificial intelligence. My name is Aldo, and each week I sit down with innovators, thinkers and doers who are working to change our world for the better. Together we explore their journeys, uncover the lessons they've learned, and take the entrepreneurial pulse that drives them on their path to success.
Welcome to a brand new episode of Pulse, and boy, oh boy, do we have an amazing guest for you this week. Dr. Marc Brackett is a world-renowned psychologist. He's the executive director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and the author of two very important books, Permission to Feel and Dealing with Feeling, which is a book, but also an amazing webcast that you can watch on YouTube. Together with Ben Silberman, Marc is also the founder of How We Feel, an app currently used by millions of people on the planet. And for those of you who do not know Ben Silberman, he is the founder of Pinterest. Marc has received hundreds of endorsements and accolades from loads of Hollywood actors and celebrities. The most notable is that he's the favorite emotional guru of Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales. However, all accolades aside, you should know that the most important thing about Marc is that he's just an amazing human being, very worthy of our time and attention, which I hope you will give him with episode 11 of Pulse, Dr. Marc Brackett. Hope you'll enjoy it. Yes, and we are live with a brand new interview, and this one is a very, very, very special one because I have a very, very, very special and busy guest here with me, Dr. Marc Brackett. A very warm welcome to you, Marc.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Aldo.
And I didn't exaggerate any of my previous varies. Let me open with that. You are an expert in emotional intelligence, in feeling and being in touch with our feelings. I had the great privilege of speaking to you, I think, a few years back in Doha, in Qatar.
All right.
I was very impressed. And I know you've done many interviews, but ever since then, I've been following you and seeing you rise and rise and rise and rise with so many great interviews with Andrew Huberman, Chris Williams, so many others, great interviews. You are the favorite psychologist of the Princess of Wales, so the royal family. So there are so many accolades. So let me start by conveying the feeling of, and I know you didn't know it was a feeling, but I'm proud of you, Marc, for doing so many great things. I really am. And thank you for taking a little bit of time to talk to us here for our little podcast.
It's my pleasure to be here. Let's
get to it. Let's get to it.
Go. Yeah. Any direction that you want to go is good for me.
Yeah. So for those of you who do not know, you are the founding director of the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence, and you're all kind of talking to the world, whether these are students or teachers or just people in daily life, about emotional regulation, right? Like why we need to spend more time with ourselves in terms of recognizing our emotions, defining them, and growing from there. Is that correct?
It is. I would say that I am an advocate. Sometimes if I'm feeling very immodest, I'll call myself an emotion revolutionary. But emotions matter for everything in our lives. And how we deal with our emotions is especially important for achieving what we want out of our lives. And I just can't get over how hard it is to get that message across to parents and educators and government officials. And so my goal in life is to continuously do research to show that emotions matter and to cultivate programs to support people of all ages in developing the skills of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. What I liked about your message when you spoke in Doha, because you were there, because you had a specific approach for schools and, teachers to convey to students in schools, which is the ruler approach, which is a fascinating, simple, yet very effective approach to recognizing emotions. I think with dealing with feeling, you've branched out slightly further, right? More to everyone,
Yeah.
so to say. Yeah.
Just to jump in for a second, I spent 20 or so years of my life focused on the skills of emotional intelligence, which I still feel are critical and important for everyone to learn. But what I found was there were a lot of barriers. People would say things like, it's not my job to talk about feelings. I'm only comfortable with happy and joyful. I don't want to deal with sadness or despair or anxiety or frustration. And I found a lot of people defensive and afraid of emotions. And so that's why I wrote my first book, Permission to Feel, which was to show people that there's no such thing as a bad emotion. All emotions are data. All emotions are information. And let's just embrace them all because life is a roller coaster ride of emotions. And then we can learn the skills. And I felt like we needed to have a shift in our mindsets around feelings to get people more motivated to develop the skills. And so that was kind of like the last 6 years of my life. And then the pandemic hit. And all of a sudden everybody was like, Mark, thank you for giving me permission to feel, but what the hell do I do with all these feelings? And so I decided in that moment, and I was also struggling regulating my own emotions, that I wanted to focus my career on emotion regulation. So what are the core competencies, skills, techniques, however you want to call it, that can help us each better manage our emotional lives so that we can deal with stress and have more contentment and happiness and well-being and achieve our goals.
Yeah. And easier said than done.
Yes.
I think because, if I take myself as an example, my wife always tells me that I have a delayed emotional response to things. Meaning that someone can be extremely mean to me. And then my first response is, okay, it's my fault. I go like, I should have known that this person's had a difficult childhood and I overstepped or I take a backseat. It's only later that I get in contact with the real emotion. So for some reason, I only get to define what my emotion was after the fact. I don't know if you recognize that phenomenon, but
sure. People are different and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think ultimately the goal is to have self-awareness. And so if it takes you a little bit longer than everybody else, so be it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know from myself now. So that leads me to kind of say, I'm going to take a step back before I respond. Just because, because I know emotion comes into play. So rather than responding right off the cuff, I'm going to say, well, give me a few minutes here so I can really feel, what's going on, and understand what's going on before I give a response. Because I notice that my first response is often one that I tend also to regret later, right? That I'm like, okay, well, I wasn't, and it's not necessarily that I respond aggressively to something, but it's more like, okay, no, I need a minute just to understand what's going on here in the composition of rational and emotional, so to say. So that's what I've learned from that. Yeah.
And honestly, taking it slowly is probably a better model because our automatic reactions to stimuli tend not to be ones that are guided by the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly. What I like about all those interviews, and this is also why I dare to say that I'm proud, is you put yourself out there as well. Your own growing up, your own troubles in your childhood and kind of all these things, which makes it so beautiful, right? It makes it very fragile, but also people recognize it. And I think it really helps people listen and grow to you more. Was that a conscious choice and was that a scary thing to do?
Well, I think, as you know, because you've read my first book, Permission to Feel, I share, about my childhood sexual abuse. And, my immediate family, of course, knew about it. Not of course, but I disclosed it after 5 terrible years of abuse, finally, to my family. I never talked about it like professionally, for sure. And then, what happened is that, I became a scientist and I'm running around the world teaching people the skills of emotional intelligence and developing a program with my uncle and other people. And what happened was that people would say, like, what's your real motivation and why are you so inspired and what pushes you to work so hard? And I would say things like, I hated school, I was bullied, but I didn't get to the heart of it, which was the truth,
Mm.
at least from my perspective, which is that I was robbed of my emotional life as a child.
Yeah.
And so I really didn't have permission to feel.
Yeah.
I had permission to suppress and repress and deny and scream and cry and hit and misbehave. And I just felt I was 48 years old when I wrote my first book. I was, successful enough in my career that I didn't feel like, anybody could hurt me.
Mm.
And I figured, let me just be truthful and honest about it. And I feel really good about doing that. I think
Mm.
that I don't perseverate on it. I just
Mm.
share it as a piece of me. And I also think it's an important representation that you can have a lot of trauma in your life and you can work through it and achieve your goals. And I want to also be a role model for that for people.
Yeah, and I commend you for leading by example, because that's what you do, right? You don't overlinger on what happened to you, but you use your own story to convey kind of the scientific facts that you found
Yeah,
after, and that makes it a lot stronger, right? If you wouldn't be as close to it, then people would go like, well, what do you know? Maybe, but you say, no, I do know, and here's what I went through. And please listen to each and every interview that Dr. Marc Brackett has done.
that's okay.
Also, the interview with Andrew Huberman, I think
Mm-hmm.
you speak about kind of this situation of bullying, but in the workplace at Yale.
Yeah.
And you say, like, here I am with all this success, and it's still, still something happens which took you back. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's such a very sharp perception and observation. And also for you to consciously step out of it, say, well, no more, right? I'm not going with this. This is not what I'm not having it. And it shows you that it happens in all walks of life. At any age, it can happen to you, even if you feel like you're the most successful. This pattern can still come back to you, and you can still kind
Yeah.
of respond as your old self, as the young Mark, the very small Mark, versus Mark, the successful Dr. Marc Brackett, right? So we stay in connection.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, our experiences in life are all connected.
Yeah.
And so even at 50, when somebody says something that's mean or hurtful that tries to denigrate you, if you have memories of a similar experience, they're going to be evoked.
Yeah.
It's kind of a trauma reminder. Again, I'm blessed that I had skills and strategies to manage it, but the feeling was still there, the hurt, the anger, the kind of disbelief
Yeah.
in that the person had the audacity to say something so cruel and mean
Yeah.
for their own benefit. And I think the whole goal of the work, to be honest with you, my career, I'm not a trauma specialist. I'm an emotional intelligence specialist. Trauma is a part of my work, but it's not the heart of my work.
Mm.
And it's not clinical work. I'm kind of the everyday psychologist for people, that gives them the skills they need to navigate their lives. And my hope is that if you do the work that I do and teach in schools, you'll not need as much therapy when you get older. You still might need a little bit of therapy, but not as much. And so it's a muscle, that gets built over time and with
Yeah.
practice and
Yeah.
refinement.
Yeah.
And so I hated that experience as an adult being bullied by a colleague. But at the same time, I use it as an opportunity to learn and grow and test my capacities. And I have enough inner strength to not allow it to have power over me, which I
Yeah.
think is what really makes a lot of people have difficult lives, is they just can't move forward. And I
Yeah.
think the goal of life is to move forward.
Yeah. 100%. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like it all affects us, and we might also always be taken aback. Someone says something mean, or if we have an emotional response, but we shouldn't let it stop us from who we really want to become or what we really want to do. And I think that
Correct.
not everyone has that tool or has the ability to do that. And I think dealing with feeling as well as permission to feel can help people on their way in that sense. I want to quickly step into the year 2026,
Okay.
whereby technology,
Uh,
whereby people use a lot of technology as potential aids for their psychological well-being.
sure.
And I just came back from an intense week at MIT. I'm name dropping MIT. I'm doing that. I
There
know
you go.
you're from Yale, which,
All good.
but so I did a week in entrepreneurship development.
Nice.
And to make a long story short, we were all tasked to pitch an idea for a business to a big jury at MIT. And then the whole week we did simulations and meetings and whatever, whether the idea would fly. And we as a group had chosen for technology addiction. We set out for children 3 to 10 years old, but basically we were looking at technology addiction for Generation Z. That's where we started. And then we fine tuned our journey for children aged 3 to 10. We also worked on the assumption that technology is here to stay, so that abolishment and rejection of technology as a whole wasn't really the best approach.
Right.
And then landed on a tool to help parents make healthy decisions for their child's digital well-being.
Sure.
This is a long intro, but why I'm saying it is that you see it in you see two sides to technology. There's one, the holistic side of that it can help you, but then there's the other one, okay, you're going to go in a rabbit hole and it's only going to amplify certain emotions, maybe the wrong emotions that you already have. Where are you on this?
I am a believer that it's all about parenting and limiting exposure to excessive technology and monitoring it from the very youngest of age, including being a role model for when you're taking your kid for a walk in the stroller, when they're a baby. If you know how the brain works in terms of its addictive nature to things and the dopamine hits, etc., then you just have to be preventative. No technology at meals, no technology during the school day. It's unnecessary. All of us grew up in a society where we were in school without phones. And so to say that we need phones now in school makes no sense. And truthfully, it derails us from our concentration. We know that.
Yeah.
So, and it also, our brains need to work hard. So we're going to just have, brains that are atrophied at this point with all the technology that people are using. Not to say it's not useful. Of course it's useful. I use it all the time. But I'm a 57-year-old man who has a PhD, so I have the privilege of using it now.
Yeah.
But for kids, I'm adamantly against it.
Yeah. No, I think many are with you, but I think at the same time, for instance, the example that you give about technology not being in schools, you're right with regards to the phones. But my 6-year-old, when she goes to school, she starts her day with a screen, right? The original whiteboard has become an interactive screen. So when she comes in, she already engages with the screen to choose her lunch for the day.
Yeah.
All her homework is given to her on an application on Google Classroom. So the entire communication tool, so even though it's not phone-based or not social media-based, technology has become this kind of communication, day-to-day communication tool for many schools. It's not anymore the traditional, blackboard whereby you use a crayon to kind of, and erase it and whatever. It's become an interactive screen. So that's it might be different from the phone, but it sets the thinking for children as young as 5 or 6 as like, well, here's how we communicate. We communicate through and with technology, right? So I think this is why many parents say,
is okay. I mean, it's about boundaries and limit setting and exposure. You can't technology, thank goodness for technology. I love that I can control the temperature of my home when I'm away if I forget to lower the thermostat or something like that.
Yeah.
We don't have norms around this. And so the science has not caught up with innovation, and meaning child development science. So we need to support research that helps us understand, what is helping or harming children at what developmental levels. So that we can do things, to support their healthy development. The whole goal of all this, from my perspective, is good mental health, good relationships, good decisions, purpose and meaning in life, life satisfaction. To me, those are the outcomes that we're hoping for life. And as long as we're looking at those carefully, I mean, the reason why social media has gotten so much attention is because of the abundant research, around anxiety, and depression and comparison. And then AI, is an amazing tool. And I just can't get over how useful it is. It just blows
Yeah.
my mind.
Yeah.
At the same time, I just wrote an op-ed actually that is essentially saying that AI is the symptom, not the disease.
Yeah.
And the disease is parents and teachers and other adults don't really know how to connect. I mean,
Yeah.
and I say that two broad strokes. People struggle with intimacy. They struggle with building and maintaining healthy and strong relationships. And because of that, our kids' first teacher is kind of like, I mean, obviously they're learning through modeling of what's happening at home. But if they don't have, as I call it, an Uncle Marvin or an Aunt Maria who has that presence, then they're going to go to technology to get their treatments. And we know that that's not a safe place to go.
Yeah.
You make it good tips, but as I say, if you've been bullied at school and you're getting off the bus, artificial intelligence is not going to comfort you.
No.
It's going to be a human that gives you a hug and holds your hand.
Yeah. That's very true. What I see with AI, because I enjoy using tools like ChatGPT as well.
Sure.
But I'd like to think that at age 46, I also have, some level of critical thinking whereby I just don't go through the rabbit hole of saying, okay, AI, you're perfectly right on everything, and I don't second guess it. If I see colleagues that I work with who are a lot younger than I am, so in their 20s, let's say, they do a lot less second guessing. And I think in a professional context, that's okay. But if you also read that some people are using it as a therapist tool, that they are asking the tool for psychological advice, then I think that could be very alarming, right?
Correct.
There's less of second guessing because there's more like, okay, what AI says is the best answer you're going to get. So I find that a lot.
Inputs, that it gets.
Yeah, whatever input it gets. But also the answers, I mean, it has been debunked many times that it can give you false quotes or it can give you links on sources that do not exist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there should be loads of disclaimers on there that I think the younger generation who's more receptive to technology, they don't do that second guessing or they don't do the source checking or less so, right? So that, and I think that's a danger. And I hope it doesn't deteriorate. I hope we still...
There's some preliminary research which shows that, critical thinking is diminishing.
Yeah.
So it is something that we should be worried about.
Yeah. I wanted to discuss technology because I actually wanted to use it as a bridge to the workplace. So loads of people in the workplace are also, and this is also kind of AI driven. AI is going to change the way we work and what we do, et cetera, et cetera. What, if anything, could you say about such a transition? Do you think such a transition has the ability for us to get in touch more with our emotions and make us happier people? Or is it going to lead to maybe confusion and maybe less happiness as a consequence of that?
My inclination is that we need to do everything possible to help people have deep, high quality, person to person, face to face connection, period. We are social creatures. We learn better when we're in relationships. We feel better when we're in the presence of people who show they care and make us feel seen and heard. And so, I'm like I feel like almost like I'm the old man, in the room, who's complaining about all the technology. And again, I love technology and I'm using it for my work and I'm learning from it, but I'm using it for different purposes. I'm using it to do research. I'm using it to help me synthesize things, which I think is fantastic, or to build certain things, like a website. I mean, that's amazing to expedite that. Why not? But if kids are going to start using AI to write all of their papers for them for school, there's no way they're going to have that learning that's necessary, right? It's just they don't remember any of it because they didn't actually struggle to have that productive struggle in learning it. My primary focus is on emotional intelligence, reading emotions, understanding emotions, labeling emotions, expressing and regulating emotions. And I joke about this but it's not that funny. If you and I got into a fight right now, maybe I could go into ChatGPT and say, I'm in this podcast recording with Aldo and he's being a jerk. What should I say? And it might say, give me a little bit of advice. But then I use that advice and then you're like, Mark, go blank yourself, you jerk. Like, this is the worst podcast I've ever had. I'm like,
Okay.
oh shit. Like, what do I do? Like, do you follow? Like, it can't build on it. It can't, and, when you're alone without your computer or without your phone, when you're walking alone, or when you're, whatever's happening, we need to have the inner capacity to deal with life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my vision, is that we ensure healthy emotional development from early childhood to adulthood. Because you know what? As I'm getting older, yes, I'm using technology more, but I'm also craving deeper connections with a smaller amount of people in my life.
Yeah.
Because, it gets lonely to sit around. I'll just give you one example. And I couldn't share this until recently because I had an NDA, but that's expired. So I was doing consulting for a company that was asking me to teach devices to be more emotionally intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will tell you that consulting gig lasted for a very short period because I refused to teach it to basically create an addiction. And so the goal, if you're struggling, with depression or anxiety, is to go out there and live your life.
Yeah.
And achieve your goals and manage the stress and, stay in college or deal with the difficult grieving that you're having from a loss or something like that. And that you can't do that going back and forth with a device.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not reasonable. Yes, it can give you tips and advice. If you're going on a job interview, you might do a little AI kind of role playing. All that's great. But nothing takes the place of another human.
Yeah.
Especially a human that cares. And I think part of the reason is that, going back to what I said earlier, that people are gravitating towards tech for solving their mental health challenges, is that they don't feel like there's anyone in their life that actually cares.
Yeah.
And that's there for them, that doesn't judge them, that's present.
Yeah.
That's the real issue that we have to solve for.
Yeah. And weirdly enough, I mean, there are loads of things to unravel here. And thank you for sharing. It's very fascinating. And I'm gobsmacked to hear that that's where we're at, right? Like giving human features and emotional intelligence to tools so we stick with it, so we become addicted to them. It's a very dangerous thing to think about. And I like what you said about, and I want the listeners also to hopefully write that down. It's about building human relationships, right? That's the best we can give the next generation. Like, continue building relationships. And that is a human thing to do, understanding another human being and growing with another human being. As you said, Uncle Marvin, who gives
And
you
if
a hug.
you're, a heterosexual or any kind of relationship, procreate with a human being and have intimacy.
Yes.
Or adopt, but the point is that the research is clear. The thing in life that helps us get through life with the greatest well-being is relationships.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, technology relationships are very one-sided. It's all about you, and it's all about you and you and you. I mean, we're even showing, the research shows that people are having less sexual relations. There's less intimacy.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah. No, it very much is. What I'm thinking is, like, how do we get there? Because I've never used ChatGPT for any psychological advice, but I will admit that I was last year, I was, trying to lose a couple of kilos, trying to get in shape. And then I asked, am I doing the right thing here? So I was skipping rope outside, and I was like, am I doing enough? Should I do more? Like, whatever. Because I think, like, for the life of me, who else is going to advise me? I don't want to go to a kind of a professional trainer, because I didn't want to go that far. My wife will look at me like, just go outside and do something. Don't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she's mean, but she looks at me like, so kind of, I think very often we think that our problems aren't big enough to be dealt with by a human being. I think, we're underestimating that as well. And that's why we kind of go to technology, because it's an easier thing to do rather than going to a human being. I feel there's a threshold, because I almost think like, who would want to be bothered by listening to my little problem, right? That maybe is the essence where it starts.
Well, I think, but Aldo, you said a very revealing statement there. You said bothered.
Bothered, yeah.
And so you have already come in with the assumption that people don't want to support you, or that if you share with them something that's challenging, that's a burden. And I think that comes from our development.
Okay, yeah.
That comes from the messaging that our parents tell us, like, get over it, move on, suck it up, buttercup. And that's where it starts going wrong. I'll tell you, I was in a classroom recently with a 5-year-old, and he was doing his mood meter check-in, which is one of our tools. And he was like kind of feeling sad or something. And I just said, do you want to talk about it? He goes, no, I don't want to bother you.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah.
A 5-year-old is saying that, as if the 5-year-old is supposed to figure out what he can do for himself to better manage his emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you follow? And so you start teaching that, like, boys don't cry, don't share at 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. What happens? You grow up denying, suppressing emotions.
Yeah. How do we get there? Like, as you said, like, when did things become a bother? It's like,
I think it's been for millennia.
This?
I mean, that's a big statement, but I think, this stems from different philosophies that emotions are experiences that drive you to not be logical. And so let's just not have them. Little did we know that was an untrue statement, that emotions actually are useful information. They energize us. They help us with our survival. If we didn't have an emotion system, my gosh, what would life be like?
Yeah.
Some people would say it'd be great. I think it would be just, we might as well just all be robots.
Yeah.
And I think these are things from our history that have just, come into place around masculinity, around femininity, that need to be revisited.
Yeah.
Because, what we do know from research, I have a op-ed that's coming out in a magazine this week about men and emotions. I can't remember the exact data off the top of my head, but it's about 3 times more men die by suicide than women.
Yeah.
Think about that for a minute. It's not a biological difference in whatever mechanism is causing that depression or not wanting to live anymore. It's the pressures from society that men can't cry. Men should not share emotion.
Yeah.
If that's not a wake-up call, I'm not sure what is.
Yeah, it reminds me as well of this book by Professor Galloway. I mean, calls it, which is all about that, right? Like how toxic things are for young men at the moment, and that technology is an amplifier in the wrong direction of them going into conspiracy theories, etc., rather than helping them. Whereas women are a lot more resilient and perceive it on a different way. And then at the same time, you have the anxious generation with Jonathan Haidt, who says that women are, when they're younger, are in more trouble because they're looking for social emulation on, specifically on social media. So regardless of your gender, I don't think it's good news, right? I think I'm very much in favor of building human relationships. Yeah.
We've created the gender differences, and we can uncreate them by helping all children have a solid education in self-awareness and emotional intelligence, so that they can make choices for themselves about what works best for them, not let the world decide what's best for them based on bias and fear, and some philosopher, from 200 years ago.
Yeah. So we're based here in the United Kingdom. So I am, not you, but you are always a very warm guest here of Princess Catherine, the Princess of Wales. And am I correct to assume, are you doing work together? Are you developing something, or have you developed something? And can you talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so I and a bunch of other researchers and practitioners are advisors to the Prince and Princess of Wales Foundation, the Early Childhood Center, the Center for Early Education. And we created a framework called the Shaping Us Framework, which is a model that we hope people will take more seriously in supporting healthy emotional and social development. And so we do lots of things. The last time I was in the UK was just about 2 months ago, where I did a presentation at Salesforce headquarters. The princess was there, and I interviewed a very famous UK person, Sir Gareth Southgate, about the role of sports in emotional development. And he was very clear, you know, this work on emotional intelligence belongs in sports too.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm working with lots of schools in the UK, by the way,
Mm.
which I love. By the way, I love England, and I love being there. And I think even the whole British stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on, is a wave of the past.
Yeah.
When I'm interviewing kids and when I'm talking with teachers, they're craving emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
People are craving the skills, the vocabulary, and the strategies to better manage their feelings. People always ask me, like, where do you get started? And I think two things. One is obviously I have two books. My most recent is Dealing with Feeling. First one is Permission to Feel, both published in the UK. And also my app, the How We Feel app. I created that in part with the co-founder of Pinterest, Ben Silverman, and our respective teams.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got millions of users of that app, and it's going really well, and people really enjoy it. And so I just think the problem that we have is that people haven't had an emotion education.
Yeah.
And so you got to start somewhere. You got to learn and you got to cultivate the knowledge. Why do emotions matter?
Yeah.
If you get there and you see the value proposition, oh, my life is going to be better. I'm going to make better choices. I'm going to have better relationships. I'm going to achieve my goals. Well, then you'll want to develop the skills. And so that's kind of my recommendation.
Definitely. With regards to the app, and this is always a tension that I feel and that I think loads of parents feel, right? We started like not too many apps, not too much technology, but on the other hand, it could also help us, right?
Correct.
And that's also where I'm at, to be fair, right? So I'm not in the modus where everything needs to be offline. So let's all look for offline solutions. There could be online solutions to potentially recommend you to go offline for a while, hopefully not with any addictive measures in there. Can you very quickly take me through how your app, how do you feel would help someone navigate through those things? Yeah.
The way it works is that first, you're not supposed to spend a lot of time on it, maybe 3 to 4 minutes a day. 5 minutes if you have the time, but you're just doing an emotion check-in. And people ask all the time, like, why do we need technology? Well, from my perspective, it's hard to remember how we felt.
Yeah.
And we tend to only think about our feelings when we're feeling really great or really shitty.
Yeah.
And so if you have an app to build your self-awareness that says, you may think, I'm feeling really down these days. And then you use an app like ours and you check in 3 times a day for a couple of weeks and you look at your data because it analyzes your data in terms of like time of day, who you're with, where you're at, what you're doing. You start realizing, oh gosh, I'm not as sad as I thought I was, or I'm not as anxious as I thought I was. I just think about my anxiety because of my negativity bias. But if I really am true with myself, there's plenty of points during the day where I'm feeling contented or excited or other emotions. And so the tracking, I think, is really important to build self-awareness.
Yep.
And then, of course, what we want to do is ask ourselves questions. So is this the emotional life that I want? Or is this the emotional life that I want to shift a little bit? And then I think all the things that you do to shift are the things that I write about in my books. Give yourself permission to feel, cultivate relationships, learn how to shift, the negative self-talk you're having to be more productive. But again, the app is really just used as a self-awareness tool and some skill building also, but as a way to unpack your emotional life so that you can then live the life that you want to live.
Yeah. That's great. I'm going to use it. I'm going to definitely take a look at it and recommend other people to as
It's
well.
on Android and iOS. And the good news is that because of generous donations, it will be free forever.
Oh, wow. That's good. So you're not going to be lured into any premium model.
No, there's no
anything.
like upcharging after you lose it for 5 days or something like that.
Yeah.
No.
That's good. How does that make you feel that such an app is there with millions of people?
I feel blessed because this whole relationship emerged from Ben, who founded Pinterest. He read my book, and then we started chatting, and he was doing something else in a related space, and I was doing my thing, and we decided to come together, to create this app.
Yeah.
So I feel wonderful, and I feel wonderful that we're able to help people for free.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. So many things happening in your life and in your world. I know you're extremely busy, and of course, more power to you to continue on this path. What is kind of in the near future the next project you're going to work on? Are you going to do more with dealing with feeling, or is there anything else on the horizon with the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence?
Well, a couple of things. I'm building a free course on emotional intelligence that will be available in about 6 months. That will go across the world. So just trying to get this stuff out there.
Yeah.
It'll be a broad course on emotional intelligence and how to develop the skills. Obviously, the books will accompany it. And I'm working on my third book.
Oh, wow.
That's why I'm away right now while we record this in a secret place by myself, focusing on my writing, which is a blessing that I feel I have in life right now. Especially because I'm in a warm place and we had a huge snowstorm, so I've escaped it. And my family is not like me right now. But I'm not the kind of psychologist or professor that is constantly doing new things. Like, that's just not my thing, because I feel like I haven't achieved much of my life's goals yet. Meaning, I feel great that I've written books and I have apps, but I think the goal is to get people to use these things and to use them to improve their lives. So for me, it's always about going deeper and not wider.
Yeah.
So my new book is going to take the work that I've done and Permission to Feel and Dealing with Feeling, go one level deeper to help people cultivate the mindsets and skills they need to have better lives.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I can't wait to get into How Do You Feel, the app, further into your book, but also going on that journey of deeper, not wider. But please don't say that you feel that you haven't accomplished anything, because you're you're out of the zone, compared to the rest of us. So for us mere mortals, you've achieved a lot.
I feel very lucky, yes. But I have, I feel like you have one life to live, and I'm going to do what I can in this journey to support the most amount of people with the, the best possible advice based on science.
Yeah, no, definitely. And we will be following you. My two very last questions, very quick, because I appreciate you've got a busy schedule. And I ask all my guests. So the first one is about morning routines. I'm doing just a little investigation about morning routines and whether it makes a difference in your day. And I'm now speaking to, of course, an expert such as yourself. But I ask anyone, from a full stack developer to an investor to whatever. Do you have a morning routine? And if so, do you care to share?
I do. I wake up. I have a cup of coffee immediately. I and my partner or whoever's home take the dogs for a walk for about a half hour outside, no matter what the weather is. Come back, have breakfast, set my goals for the day, and then I go to work. Even if I'm on vacation, the dogs aren't here with me. I'm lucky I get a little break. But this morning I woke up, had a cup of coffee. I did an hour of yoga. And then I sat down, had breakfast, and set my goals for the day. And I had 3 hours of writing before this. And then I have you.
Wow.
And then I've got a board meeting in a little while. And then I'm going to write more in the afternoon. But I'm very organized. I like structure. Even if I'm on vacation or on a retreat, wherever I'm at, I like to have clarity about what I want to accomplish. And so that's my routine.
Yeah. Nice. And when you go for a walk, very quickly, do you use a device? Or do you just
actually, we have a rule that we leave our phones at home for that half hour walk in the morning.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I hear a lot. I'm going to do that as well. To kind of get some outside time, no phones.
Yeah, sometimes we break the rule and then we get into a fight, but
Yeah. No, but it's good. It's good that you have that as a rule. So it indeed feels like a violation when you do, rather than just saying, well, such is life, because it just crawls in very easily, and then you're distracted and you don't get out of it what you wanted to, right? So yeah. And then my very last question, Mark,
sure.
any book that has inspired you on your journey, any book that maybe a young Marc Brackett read that has made him the man he is today, or maybe slightly less dramatic, maybe just a book you like that you care to share with our audience as a recommendation for reading, other than Permission to Feel or Dealing with Fear.
Yeah, of course.
Can't self-promote.
I'm a big fan of the scientist Lisa Feldman Barrett, and she has a very tiny little book called 7.5 Lessons of the Brain. And I just think it's a great read. It helps us rethink the way we think about things. And so that I really like that book.
7.5 Lessons of the Brain by Lisa
Feldman Barrett.
Feldman Barrett. I will make sure to include it in our show notes so people can pick up on it together with your 2 books and a link to the app. How do you feel? Mark, thank you so much for your time. The world is a better place with you in it. Again, I'm very proud. Keep on keeping on, as they'd say. Thank you so much, Dr. Marc Brackett.
Thank you. And we're going to go for a meal or a beer or whatever you do in wherever you are in London when I'm there next.
Definitely. I'm based in Scotland, by the way. So
you're
the
in
UK is Scotland. Yeah. So, but I'll come meet you in London.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You've listened to Pulse by AlphaWire, produced by Natalie Piles and Amela Faisal, with great music, The Optimist, written by Holly Hamill, performed and produced by Aldo. Episodes hosted weekly by me, Aldo the Pup.